Hi, I'm Dave Koch. Welcome back to my channel. This is the fourth episode in this series on pricing in real estate photography. And in some ways, this one is, I don't want to say the most fun, but it's definitely something we've all faced. And that is having your client go, oh, that's a lot more expensive than I expected. And I think we have all faced that, not just one or two times, but innumerable times this week. How would you respond to something like that without losing the job and your dignity? You know, when done properly, your response to that question will do more to helping you get the job than the actual quote will. Here's the thing. In most cases, you're the first photographer that this client has ever hired. Or you're the second, and the first one was, the headshot guy down at Sears or whatever. Oh, that doesn't exist anymore, does it? Anyway, many, if not most, of these people, especially that respond this way, don't deal with photographers on the regular. And it's really up to you to teach them about why you are more expensive. I think a lot of times what these people are doing is just calling up, getting quotes, comparing numbers, and going with the cheapest one because they don't understand that. In our previous episode, we talked about having a guide to send out to them to sell your level of photography and why the value is there in it. Here, I think what we're talking about is doing that same thing, but over the phone or in person. First, just know this is not about ego and take your ego completely out of this. This is business. It has everything to do with initially price because that's the only way they have of gauging photography. At that point, it's incumbent on you to teach them what the difference in prices is and why you are worth a higher value than they were expecting. First, let's go over some of the things you shouldn't say. Nobody cares if you have a $5,000 camera. Don't even let that enter the discussion. I shoot, as some of you guys know, on an Arca Swiss tripod head, and that's really expensive too. None of my clients know that. None of my clients care. I do that for me. Your $5,000 camera is for you. I know really, really good photographers who shoot with a $600 or $800 camera. So cameras, nobody cares. Number two, don't bash your competition. If you can avoid mentioning your competition at all, do that. But never, ever, ever say, oh, I'm better than blah, 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 blah. Or I do this better than them, or they don't know how to do this, or anything like that. It's just not professional. Third, don't drop your price. If they say, oh, that's too expensive, don't say, well, how about $175 then? That just shows desperation and, again, as we said in the first episode, a lack of confidence in your abilities and your value. Stick to your price. Assuming you're dealing with a realtor and what they may say is, oh, my other photographer does it for this. A good response is, yeah, but you're not just buying photos. You're investing in faster sales. Bigger, brighter pictures attract more eyes and get you a brand that stands out and will be known for good, bright, well-composed images. Let the realtor know that the images reflect on them. One of the things I like to tell them too is that the pictures that I'm shooting today are not to sell this house today, but to sell them to their next client tomorrow. And I think, when you let realtors know that the picture quality reflects on their abilities, it's a little bit of an easier sell. You can also try and build trust. You can say, I'm consistent in what I deliver. If I say I'm going to be there at 10, I will be there at 10. If I say you're going to have the images by tomorrow at 10, you will have the images tomorrow at 10. Sell your professionalism. Never forget, if you're with a homeowner and you're working for the realtor, you're representing that realtor. So when you get there, you need to be on time. You need to be communicative. Is that the right word? Communicative? God, that's hard to say. You need to, be polite, understanding. One of the first things I always ask is, should I take my shoes off? Always respect that homeowner's home. It is their home, whether it's a $10,000 apartment or a $20 million home. That's their home, and you need to respect that. And that goes a long way towards building that trust with that realtor and having them come back. Nothing is worse than them hearing from the homeowner, oh, that photographer you sent over was a jerk. You're never going to get hired if you hear that. The third option is to remove items from the package that you're selling. Let's say that you quote them, let's say $200, and that includes aerials. And they say, oh, that's just too much. Find out what they were expecting. If they were expecting 150, say, okay, yeah, we can do 150, but I won't include the aerials. Then you'll see one of two things happen. Either they'll see the value of the aerials, which is important because we're selling value, remember. Or they'll say, yeah, I don't need the aerials. Let's do it for 150. You've got the job. But if they go, oh, those aerials are really important. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. That'll happen. Or they'll say, no, it's just out of my budget. And that's fine too. And that leads us to the fourth solution. If you're drastically far apart, I quoted a guy, a hotel shoot, and I was in the $3,000 to $4,000 range, and he was in the $500 range. And, it was in southern Utah, and my mileage would barely be covered by the 500. My photo fee, yeah. Needless to say, that was just too far away to make that work. And what you need to say there is, I understand budget is a very important concern, but I'm just not the proper photographer for what your budget allows. I can't give you what you need at that price, and I can't work at that price. Say something like that and let them part friends, be friendly, offer to put them in touch with a camera club or, a beginner photographer or something like that. And maybe that will help and ease the pain a little bit. But, the important thing is to just not come off snotty or something like that. It is important to know when to walk away. I have found that the clients that are not responsive to the value that I add, that are shopping price only, are absolutely the worst clients. My clients that pay me $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 for a job are generally the easiest clients I have to work with, and I get paid immediately. Those $125, $150 jobs, they nitpick everything, nothing is good enough, and they are the most time-consuming, irritating clients that you can have. So a lot of times, if somebody's searching and looking just based on price, you kind of already know they fit into that category and they're not worth chasing. So know when to cut bait, and I'll just leave that at that. So the next time somebody says you're too expensive, remember these three things. Don't panic. Don't overtalk it, but don't discount either. Figure out a way that you can solve their problem and still get the job, because you can, even if you are too expensive. I do hope you've learned something in this video and in this series. If so, let me know. I love hearing positive stories about the things that I do in videos. If you have any questions or other ideas, any other ways to handle the "you're too expensive" line, put them in the comments below. People want to hear. let's all share and be a strong real estate photographer community. Well, that about wraps this up. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And may your next shoot be your best shoot.